Have you ever felt like your business is stuck in a cycle of constant firefighting with no time to focus on the strategic stuff that really matters? This is a really common struggle in the construction industry, but imagine breaking free from the daily grind to create a business that runs smoothly and more profitably without you. You're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast, the show that's all about helping construction business owners have more freedom, impact, and wealth by systematizing your construction business. Think self-managing company, a business that runs without you. My name is Todd Dawalt. I'm your host, and my team and I have helped over 400 construction companies eliminate chaos, grow their profits, and their team. Today on the show, we're tackling a really big question, an essential question. How do you create a thriving multi-generational construction business while avoiding burnout and while maintaining profitability? To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Rocky Rhodes, the co-owner of Dusty Rhodes Homes, a Kansas City-based custom home builder that's been successfully operating for nearly 60 years. And Rocky has a very unique perspective. He's a second-generation builder working alongside his children in the third generation, and he's seen it all, from the challenges of the Great Recession of 2008 to navigating today's market conditions. In this episode, you'll learn three key takeaways. Number one, how to build trust and transparency in a family-owned business. Number two, why leveraging systems and getting paid for estimates can transform your bottom line. And number three, some strategies to free up your time by reducing chaos and embracing a CEO mindset. And you'll hear some pretty fascinating insights on how Rocky shifted his company's trajectory by addressing problems he didn't even know existed. So if you're ready to stop putting out fires and start building a business that works for you, stick around for this episode of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. Rocky Rhodes, welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast. How's it going today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
So if you would, tell us a little bit about your business, the name of your company, the type of work you do, where you're located, and then we'll dig into it from there.
Our company name is Dusty Rhodes Homes, and we're in the Kansas City metro area. So Kansas City's on the border of Kansas and Missouri, and we work in both states. And we're primarily move up, custom build, single family builders, but we do some other work and we do some development and some remodel. But I'd say our primary focus is on just custom build, kind of move up luxury homes.
And can you give us an idea of the scale of your business? Like how many homes will you build in a year, team size, things like that?
I think this year we closed pretty close to $20 million in volume, which probably constituted about 20 homes. So we're about $1 million on average per home. And our team consists of 8 of us total. That includes the ownership. My business partner is my sister. And so we both actively work in the business as well. So, but we actually have 2 of those employees are part-time and 6 of us actively work full-time in the business.
You've been at this a while. Before we hit record, you said you've been doing this for about 40 years. How did you get started in the business?
My dad actually started the company in 1966, and my mom's 2 brothers were actually involved in real estate and got into home building. And we relocated from California when I was a little kid, and my dad got into the business. And after college, I grew up smelling sawdust and all that, and just loved the job sites, and just kind of almost went to college as a formality. Studied business, didn't really apply my degree in any way. But anyhow, joined the company in about 1985, and about the same time my sister did. So I think we bought my dad out in the late 90s. I think it was 97, and have been in business now ever since. So it's been a great run.
Your dad started the business. You and your sister took over the business. And is there a third generation involved in the business now?
There is. So I have a daughter and a son that are involved. And then my son has a identical twin brother who may be joining the business to some degree. He's so we may have three of the third generation involved here, but 2 right now.
Unfortunately, a lot of businesses don't survive past the first generation, what do you think are some keys to a business becoming a multi-generational business? Like what has to be in place for a business to survive from the founder to the second generation and then even to the third generation?
I was really fortunate because my dad was also a developer. And by the time I got involved in the construction end of the business, he had kind of had his fill. He was more interested in developments than he was building. And so I remember when I started, the training program was kind of sink or swim. And I remember when I started, I thought I knew a lot. And I think I told him after the first year that I realized I knew nothing. And he just kind of let me do my own thing. And he's always there for guidance. We office together. And so, and it was a time before cell phones, fax machines, and computers. And so, a lot more communication just directly, and easygoing guy. So it worked out pretty well for us. He let us, he wasn't very controlling. So he let us make mistakes and trusted that we would want to improve, And so I've tried to carry that forward with my kids. And actually, they've probably exceeded my expectations, I think we all think nobody can do it better than we can. And it seems like every time I let them do their own thing, they end up surprising me and doing a terrific job. So I think just trying to let go of control a little bit really helps.
Working in a business with a partner is tricky, has its own nuances. When that partner or those partners are family, there's another layer of complexity. What would you say are the keys to making that work?
Well, that is another great question because, my sister's just a couple years older than I am and started about the same time I did. We just always got along. And so that helped. And additionally, as we kind of grew and matured into the business, I started some other projects on the side, and she was kind of more involved in raising her family, where I had the luxury of not managing the kids on a daily basis. So I was able to do some other things that I wanted to do in business, and she was okay with that and understood the trade-off. So I'll never forget that. It always made a big impression on me and I think that's probably why it's worked well for her and I. And we also had a little bit different interest in the business. I always tell people she does the part I don't want to do, which she manages our warranty, and that's a big part of her position. The dynamic is now our third generation. How is that going to work? And that's a little bit trickier. Ours just worked out kind of naturally. I can't say there was a grand plan in any way. I think one thing that we did do is when we bought my dad out, my dad maintained a 10% ownership in the company. And so her and I each had 45%. So if we got into a disagreement, there was kind of a swing vote to try and straighten things out. I don't think it was ever necessary, but it was good planning. So that was probably about the only safeguard we had in terms of managing, that. But so the third generation is to be determined, So they're both in their 30s now and very independent, very growth oriented, and so it's something that we need to be thinking about probably a little bit more here in the near future.
One of the things that will erode or maybe even ruin a partnership or especially a family-owned business is a low trust environment. And actually, at our event in Naples that you attended, I heard one of our folks was sharing a horror story about this incredibly wealthy family, and there were two brothers who had inherited the business, and they had each hired hitmen to take out the other one, and therefore they had bodyguards to protect themselves from their brother. And it was just this crazy story that was because they didn't trust each other. And there was this massive company that they were each trying to take from the other one. So I'm curious, this may be difficult maybe hard for you to answer because it's just part of the way you guys operate. But I'm curious, how do you think you can create a high trust environment could be with your partners, family members, employees? What do you think? Clearly, to get to a point where you are and to grow a business to this scale and keep it successful for as long as you've built some trust. So how can somebody go about creating a high trust environment? What do you think?
Well, it really starts with yourself, I think. In our business, it's really easy to, say, well, at home, I want a new oven and, I'm just going to charge it off to a job and I'm not going to tell my business partner. That is a bad idea. I think that you have to be 100% transparent and honest, because if you're not going to trust your partner if you can't even trust yourself. I think that's probably the most critical factor, is you just have to have the integrity yourself. I think that's where it all starts, to be honest.
I've had a business partner who stole from me, and I remember finding that out the moment I was looking through bank statements and figured that out. And it really took the wind out of my sails. And it's really hard to maintain motivation when that happens. So being a trustworthy person, getting some controls in place is probably a good idea, whether you have a business partner or not. If you have somebody else touching your finances, putting some controls in place is probably a great idea. Yeah. So having been around as long as you went through 2008. You shared before we got started, before we hit record, talking a little bit about how 2008 affected you. But I'm curious, what were some of the lessons that you learned having gone through the great financial crisis of 2008? And feel free to share to the extent you're comfortable talking about what that looked like for you. But I'm curious, what were some of the main lessons you learned having gone through that?
We're in a highly leveraged business, particularly the new home side of it, where you're, getting construction loans and you're personally guaranteeing them. And then, as bad as that crisis was, all the banks became somewhat of bad actors. A lot of them took advantage. We even had one bank that just plain took advantage of one of our credit lines. That we had a project that probably had 20 some odd spec units, and they imposed a immediate payment notice or 17.5% interest. So, it's just kind of crushing. So I would say, first of all, no matter how prognosticators think the market's going to go, you really need to manage your debt level. And just because you're selling and everything's rosy, I kind of got away, I think, from looking at the real cost of debt and how fast it could really burn up your cash flow. And, I'd always been told in business, if you could build up 2 years worth of covering your expenses, you're probably in pretty good shape. And I can tell you, it just depends on your spec level. And I think we were spec'd up a little higher. But back then, before the big downturn, we didn't do as much custom work. We did a lot of speculative homes because they were just selling so well. And it was just easy to get a house built and it would sell immediately. And so I think that was probably my biggest lesson. And I think probably that's what I've taken away from the big downturn more than anything, is now I'm a little bit sensitive to debt. Although, you have to, if you're in business, you're borrowing money most likely. The other thing might be to try and be realistic. There's a tool that we use in Construction Leading Edge that kind of helps you identify your overhead and the cash flow that you're bringing in. And I think if I had something like that, the alarms would have gone off a long time before they would have. I would say for me, just the fact that what debt could really do to you. And I mean, it can, it can be as easy as a couple years ago, we had rate tightening started again, and rates doubled from 4.5% to 9%. And that certainly impacts your, cost of doing business. And it didn't just slow down the sales, it increased our expenses. And so anyhow, I'd say that's probably been my biggest takeaway from that event.
I'm curious, as you look toward the next 12 months, we're recording this in December of 2024. What's your outlook for the economy and maybe more specifically the housing market in the next 12 to 24 months?
We're optimistic. And a lot of that is, and I will say that, every market is its own self. And so what I mean by that is we're in the Midwest, housing market's a little bit more stable, not immune to the highs and lows, but it doesn't get wildly run up like the coast. And so a house here that's $1 million would be 2 or 3 million on the coast. When rates double, their business crashes and burns. And we're optimistic about the next 12 to 24 months. I do think there's going to be quite a bit of inflation, construction and inflation. And that's because if rates continue to edge down a little bit and there's more demand on the coast, they're the ones that really utilize the resources. Hence, your lumber prices and drywall and all those things start heading up again. So we're cautiously optimistic. There's no reason locally. There's no big changes in our employment environment. Another thing you need to look at is what are your levels of, available homes in your area. And if you kind of monitor that, that can certainly help. And right now, and I think it's this way across most markets, is there's just not enough inventory. The biggest challenge is producing something that is affordable. And so I don't know if the inventory will ever be where it needs to be just because of the price. But overall, I'd say we had a decent year this year, even despite where interest rates have been. So softening interest rates couldn't hurt. So we're, again, like I said, we're fairly optimistic. I think we can do maybe a little bit more volume than we've done in the past year or two.
I'm curious, over the past, 4 years, there have been some pretty significant lumber price spikes. I think 2 major lumber price spikes. How do you go about thinking about hedging against that? Are there some things that you put in place as a result of those lumber price spikes to protect yourself against that?
Kind of funny here. The real bad lumber spike occurred a few years ago during COVID. Once COVID, everybody was sheltering in place. Everybody all of a sudden wanted a new home. And lumber prices went ballistic, doubled, I think. And at that time, we just quit taking build jobs for a brief period of time. But then what we did is we instituted a lumber allowance. So we use a general real estate contract here in our market, and we have our own builder addenda. And so what we did is we started putting in a lumber allowance, just like you would have a light fixture allowance. And I would work with clients. Some of them wanted to add a buffer into that so that they didn't come out of pocket. And so, that's really helped us because that's our number one line item in our cost estimate sheet. And when something like that doubles, it just crushed you. That's how we manage that. We actually, and that's the only commodity that we do that with. We did it with drywall for a little while, but the real expense in drywall is a lot of labor. The material just isn't like it is with lumber. So, but that's really helped us maintain our margins.
Yep, that's good advice. Using allowances, putting some basic price escalation clauses in. I'm glad you brought this up because as interest rates come down, you bring up a good point. Demand will increase, supply will go down, therefore prices will go up on lumber, especially. It seems like there's historically a price increase. At least the last 2 big price increases in lumber happened in the spring, I believe, March, April timeframe. There's some other macroeconomic factors going on there in the lumber industry that trigger that. So it's a good time to take a look at your contracts. If you have some big projects coming up in the next 6 months or so, there's really no downside to take a look at your contracts and try to hedge against price escalation and things like that. So good stuff. Let's shift gears. So you've been working with the Construction Leading Edge team for about 1.5 years now, I believe. I know we spoke, I think it was in June or July of 2023. What were some of the challenges or issues that you were dealing with that led you to reach out to us initially?
I can't remember how I came across Construction Leading Edge. I don't know if it was an email campaign or if it was the podcast, but I did find a podcast about how to get paid for your estimates. And being that we're in the move-up luxury market, doing a lot of custom work, I was like, well, that will never work. That cannot work here, particularly because of the way our market works. It's just not going to happen. And so I listened to the podcast and I thought, well, maybe I'm the problem. So I signed up. Actually, what I did was I think I called and you and I had a conversation and you asked me a question that was kind of interesting. And you said, if your company grows, are your systems able to manage that growth? And I was like, well, yeah, we're pretty organized. And you said, well, we offer this course that is kind of combined with how to systemize your construction business. And at the time, it made no sense to me. But I signed up for it and did it. And I tell you what, I had a problem that I didn't even know I had. And so you can't really get paid for your estimates unless have the systems in place to provide the right kind of estimates. So anyhow, long story short, we now get paid for our estimates and we get paid pretty well, but that was never really the problem with me. The problem with me in not getting paid for the estimates was I was not just wasting time, but I found myself getting involved with somebody and getting so deep in the process with a client that maybe we didn't really want to work with or didn't really have the budget they needed to work with us. And what it's done is it's filtered out those people and we've gotten better clients. I mean, it's kind of come 360, but it's really amazing what the switch and it's a mental switch that, yeah, I do add value to this by providing this bid to somebody. It just changes your mindset. The unintended consequence of it all is we work with a lot better client than we've ever worked with before. So that has been a great thing for us.
I think you said something to the effect of, I had a problem I didn't even know I had. What was that problem?
We thought the way that we process custom build jobs was a bit of a problem. We would provide a base price and then people made selections during the process. And where it kind of got goofy was, as always, that process somehow would get slowed down by the client or one of the vendors not being able to meet the client and then trying to get that information to the field without screwing it up. And, we, not to say we weren't organized, we use a system called Co-Construct. I think Builder Trend owns them now. So we had pretty good communication with our clients, with our field people. But the small shift was if we estimated the job properly to begin with, it would have been smooth sailing in terms of stopping delays, stopping cost overruns, arguments about why does this cost so much? Clients never understand why certain things cost as much as they do. And I just think if you cross all those bridges before you get to the exciting part, which is building the house, it's just a far better experience for your client. You are better control your own finances in terms of knowing what to expect out of the job. We thought we were organized, but we kind of figured out a better system for getting that. You guys call it the construction leading edge, the pre-construction. And it's just a different mindset that is, I shared it with our team members, and everyone was wildly excited about it, and everyone got to participate in the process of how we're going to do it. And so we had immediate buy-in from everybody, and everyone saw the value in it. So we didn't really know it was an issue until we talked about implementing it.
Hey, it's Todd here, and we have a couple of free resources that we want to get in your hands. First is our free training video, Get Out of Your Construction Business, How to Make It Run Without You This Year. Here's what you're going to get when you sign up for this free training video. You'll learn about the JETS thinking trap, which stands for just enough to start. That's probably keeping you stuck working in your business, and it keeps you stuck in firefighting mode, and it affects probably 90% of construction businesses. You'll also learn about the first few crucial steps you want to take if you want to spend more time working on your business instead of being stuck working in it. And you'll learn what nailing the handoff looks like and how it will help you eliminate 80% of your preventable schedule delays and profit bleeds. You can get your hands on that free video over at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. And the second thing is a question. Here's a question. Is your business structured for success, or is it designed for failure? We found a study and found that there are 5 root causes of contractor failure, 5 primary reasons that successful contractors self-destruct. All right. This is information that we feel like every construction business owner should know about. You should know about it for 2 reasons. If you're a general contractor, 1, you need to find out if your business is structured for success. And if you're a general contractor and you have subcontractors, you may want to ask this question: are your subs structured for success or structured for failure? And if you would like to evaluate your business to see if it's designed for success, the next step is to apply for a business evaluation call with my team. We'll go through these 5 root causes of failure, evaluate your business, and then give you some pointers. Highlight the red flags, the early indicators that you may want to focus your energy on. And if it makes sense, we can talk through the details of our Systematize Your Construction Business program that will ensure it is structured for success. If you would like to schedule your free business evaluation, go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or simply go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. Now, let's get back to the episode. I think you mentioned a couple of the side effects. So it sounds like the lack of pre-construction was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what was happening was you would put together get a construction contract signed without selections completed, and you would get the process started, the construction process started, and then get the selections as you went along after the contract was signed. What would you say were some of the big problems that was causing for you? You mentioned, like, for example, customers being upset and arguing about how much something cost. What were some of the biggest problems that you realized you were having because of that?
One would be, so the field guys have to order, because of the lack of qualified help anymore, a lot of what we do, we have to order months in advance. And it's time consuming to place a contract order with somebody and say, it's pending. We don't have all the specifications for you, but it's coming up. Or here's what we know so far. And now down the road, we're saying, oh, here we are, but here's different specifications. And so now you're relying on a whole nother company. Maybe the subcontractor pulls the wrong information because they've been told 2 different things. So that's an example of how it affects the field guys. Another problem that you have is, so someone goes to the decorator and they say they pick their tile and they're, oh my, the tile I want is so much more than, than the standard was that you had put in here. And now you're having an argument and wasting time. And a lot of times it got even worse. We'd have someone make all their selections, get the pricing to them a few days later, didn't like the pricing, had to go back and reselect. And now you're wasting more time. You're creating more. The more redundant your paperwork is, the more apt you are to make mistakes. Death by 1,000 cuts, it was nothing huge. That's why I made the comment, we didn't really know we had a problem, because we didn't really have big problems. We just had a lot of little problems. And it has really freed up a lot of people's time to do it the way we're doing it now.
Let's talk about your day today. If you were getting pulled into firefighting before this, how much time were you spending on firefighting before compared to how much time are you spending putting out these little fires now?
I spend a heck of a lot less time on the little firefights now. I've been doing this for 40 years. And so you kind of get into this groove of, this is the way I do things. I put out fires. And now part of the training that we've been going through with Construction Leading Edge has been more on focusing on, you're the CEO. How do you manage this? What if you're not there? How does this company run? And because I didn't really know how to do that, as simple as it may sound, you default to what you know. And so I would just go right back to putting out fires, because that's what I did. I did it good. I did a great job of putting out fires. It's always easier when you write the check, but it was also a colossal waste of time, and it was wheel spinning. And I think why builders and remodelers get stuck in that is that they've made some money and they've had some success. So why change it? And I think I just got to the point where, I've been doing this long enough, and I haven't been always thrilled about our margins. They've been up and down. They've been too erratic. And I was like, how do we've got to get better. How are we going to solve this issue? So again, that's just, a mind shift difference, where now that I'm not putting out fires all day, I do have some, not say guidelines, but I have an agenda. We're working on the business, and it's just a completely different animal. I'm really enjoying it. It's really changed, the stress level in my life. I still have the problem. I like to work, and some of the guys I talk to have the same problem I'm going through that have been in this business for a long time. And when we met down at our meetup, we talked about this, and I'd say every one of us has really embraced and seen the light of how much better it can be if you get out of that putting out the fire rut.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because default mode is firefighting. It's
right.
Comfortably uncomfortable, but I guess it's a known. It's not really comfortable.
Right.
But it's known. It's like, well, I know this. I've done this for years. I know what it's like to put out fires. Sometimes I know I was this way. You like to strap on the firefighter helmet and be the hero who flies in. Unfortunately, sometimes the firefighter is also the arsonist, which is a problem.
Right.
Sometimes people let fires flare up just so they can put them out. I'm curious. I like that the analogy that what you were dealing with were it was death by 1,000 paper cuts. I wonder, what was the financial impact of those 1,000 paper cuts a year before you started putting these systems in place? Like, looking back, were we talking about thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands of dollars a year? What's the ballpark of what those little paper cuts were costing?
Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I would almost say it's hundreds of thousands a year, because you can never get anywhere. You're just in this endless loop. And you just made the comment, like, sometimes you're the arsonist. And I think in a way, by not focusing on solving the real systems in the business, then you are the arsonist. You're just in that role. I would definitely say it wasn't just the expense of putting out the little fires and, just give it to the guy, I messed that up or whatever, but it was the ability. What made even more of an impact was the time that I regained to now work on the cause was rather than what the Band-Aid patch was going to be or the medicine we were going to take. And that is the biggest change. I mean, I really saw a massive change in our bottom line this year. And really, I just attribute a lot of it to being able to make better decisions because, you know, you only have so much mental energy towards your business. And I can tell you when you're putting out fires, it expends a lot of mental energy. And it doesn't just burn up your time. I mean, as you get older, you have less mental energy, hence less time. So you've really got to make time to work on those systems. And so from a bottom line perspective, I think it's critical.
What were the most impactful changes that you've made to your business based on what you've learned working with us? In other words, what are the top 2 or 3 systems or processes that have had the most positive impact for you and your team?
I get back to the get paid for your estimates, which we kind of piggybacked a course called Systemize Your Construction Business. Those 2 things combined just were kind of game changers for us. What they also did was they kicked us off down this different path. We kind of look at things different now. We look at things more of a cause than a solution. So other things that, you know, there's just a lot of little things too that I learned that made such a difference. And this one thing, you'll just laugh at me because I know everybody wants to, learn how to be more efficient and utilize their time better. But one of the things that I thought was really goofy at the time was CEO schedule. We're going to work on this thing called a CEO schedule. And boy, I had all kinds of misconceptions about this schedule. And I got to tell you, it looked pretty easy and it took me a year to work it out. And that is how to organize yourself to be the guy that diagnoses the problem as opposed to fixing it. And so that was really helpful. I also mentioned earlier, you guys created a thing called the
revenue maximizer?
Yeah, so the revenue maximizer. So I had all these forms that I had made myself. The revenue maximizer was that on steroids. It's simple, yet it showed a relationship between expenses and sales and cash. It was all the things that you try and figure out, and it kind of in one place. And so if you can kind of keep up on that, you can really follow the direction of your business much better. You can make better decisions. So it took me a while to embrace that. Again, you know, I'm probably, as much as I like to learn, you know, when you're 40 years into something, you get pretty set in your ways. And so I'm not sure about that. And then you start working on it and you're like, okay, I get it. And so there was just so many little things that we've done and learned that have really contributed to kind of the direction of our business.
We'll talk about some results. Let's talk about the results that you've seen from the work you've done. What's different about your business and your life now? We'll start with some of the things that can be measured. Not that everything that matters can be measured, but a lot of things do. What are some of the measurable results that you've seen from the work you've done?
We've improved our bottom line, and there's probably too complicated to get into why, all the reasons why. It's always a lot of little things. The revenue maximizer helps you kind of identify areas you're spending money on, not enough, areas you're spending too much money on, things like that. One thing that's different about your program and I've been involved with like Lee Evans seminars. I've been a Builder 20 member with the National Association of Home Builders. This is a more holistic program for me. This was really getting in and understanding and seeing how everything works holistically, big picture. And so I'm in a group that we meet a couple times a month. And it's great. You meet with a moderator or a coach. I really call it a business coach. And then you have other guys and gals that are in your same line of business, and you talk about business. But it's kind of like a Builder 20 where you're sharing ideas, but then it's kind of like on steroids because you have an agenda, and you have our business coach is a great guy, and he is really good at extracting, the right information out of people and providing some feedback. And so I kind of harken the program back to, it's like a Builder 20 on steroids, because you get some feedback and you have systems. You're not having to recreate systems or create systems yourself. There's some time tested things, but all those things have kind of led to just a complete mind shift change in our business. And it has transponded to the bottom line. One of the things we didn't do very well was marketing. And one of the suggestions was, well, we have somebody we work with that might be able to help you with this. And they have really helped. And it's just finding those nuggets of things. And in this particular situation, there's been a couple of these where rather than hiring somebody and spending $60 or $80 or $100,000 a year, we've been able to outsource something and get much better results. So it's just a combination of everything have led to more quality time for myself for planning. And we've actually do some development. We've been able to spend more time now on development projects. We are initiating our remodeling program again, which we just didn't feel like we had the bandwidth to do before. And so it's really kind of allowed everyone to kind of get focused on what's the most important thing for them. And it has allowed me a lot more time to deal with bigger picture items. So it's hard to quantify. It'd be hard for me to say, well, we increased our profits 25%, because in reality, it all works together and it all snowballs. And the less time I spend putting out fires, the more time we're working on productive projects. So, but again, I'd say my biggest measure would just be time and bottom line. And both of those have been great.
So you mentioned told a little bit about the CEO Alliance that you've been a part of for about a year now, I believe. What would you say being in that group has done for you? Maybe what's the best part about being in the CEO Alliance for you, Rocky?
In the CEO Alliance, you meet as a group, and then you have some one-on-one time with your coach. And he has spent more time with me probably on my biggest impediments, which were kind of fear of leverage. And he's like, let's manage by the numbers, let's get realistic about this. Here's worst case scenario, here's best case scenario. And so I think for me, that's been a big deal. He may laugh and say, well, I know he shakes his head many times at me because of my PTSD from the big meltdown, but that's been a big deal for me. And then part of the CEO Alliance is we do this meetup a couple times a year. And I went to my first meetup here recently and hey, man, I tell you, it was really neat. You got to talk to a lot of different people in a lot of different parts of construction businesses and learn how they operate. And it's a wealth of sharing ideas. And I actually talked to some of these guys since I've been back that aren't in our group. And so, again, it's all just this kind of holistic experience. It's not ever any one big thing. It's a lot of little things. And what's nice is you're kind of guided in the right direction, where without it, you just you get into that circular loop again where you don't really ever maybe address what you need to. So I mean, it's been a great experience for me.
We'll get back to the episode in just a minute. Think about these two questions. First, do you have a clear, actionable plan? In other words, a strategy for your business for the next 12 months. Second, does your team know exactly where you're headed and how you plan to get there? If your business was a road trip, are you just driving aimlessly without a map, hoping you'll get there, or do you have a clear destination and a route? If your business was a football team, are you just running around the field without a game plan, playing pickup ball, or do you have a strategy to win the game, like the pros do? Here's the reality. As the leader, it's your job to create the strategy, and your team is counting on you for that. If you'd like some help with that, for a limited time, you can download our free strategic planning guide. It's the same guide that has helped hundreds of construction business owners gain clarity, set clear goals, and be able to communicate a winning strategy to their teams. In just 60 to 90 minutes, you'll map out your plan for the next year. No more guessing, no more drifting. And it's the first step toward designing the business that you want. In fact, it's the first step in our Systematize Your Construction Business program. If you want to get your hands on that, head over to constructionleadingedge.com/planning, PLANNING, to download your free strategic planning guide. Stop running around in circles. Stop just treading water. Get clarity on the vision and direction of your company. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/planning and download your free strategic planning guide today. The live meetup that we had, which we have 2 of those a year, you came to Naples. Sounds like you've been to a lot of conferences. You've been to a lot of trainings. If somebody was thinking about coming to one of our live meetups, but they weren't really sure, like, yeah, I've been to these conferences from software companies or the big conferences, or, I've been to all of these kind of things. If they ask you, Rocky, why should I go to one of these construction leading edge live meetups? What would you tell them?
Well, interesting you should ask. We talking about bringing 3 people with me next time. That's how much I got out of it. So there's an agenda and training for about a little more than half the couple-day conference, and I found it really excellent. It was more holistic about the whole business process, where everything else I've ever been into is kind of drilling down into numbers and things like that, which there is some of that. And then what's really cool is you kind of knock off early enough that everyone can gather for, at this case, around the pool, and everyone is working kind of towards the same agenda. And so then you're sharing ideas about the direction, then everybody's heading in the right direction. So it makes it even more, I don't know, it's just, everyone has little nuggets of information. It's just one of those things that you come home with so many ideas and you're pretty fired up, and you've seen some success stories. You've seen people that are struggling. It's a lot of people that really want to be there and learn. So it's just a great environment. It was really neat.
It's a lot of fun. I think the indicator of success for me was we wrapped up the second day on Friday. I think we were done at 2:00. And then by 3:30 or so, there were 25 people or more hanging out at the pool. And then a bunch of those people went to dinner together. And then a bunch of those people ended up hanging out at a bar the next day, that night until 2:00 in the morning. And whereas I've been to a lot of conferences where my experience has been there are 1,000 people at this conference, but you're completely alone. And people have little pockets with their company, but there's very little interaction. And you may not talk to anybody for a couple of days. That's been my experience. So
yeah, at the conference, we broke into small groups many times, and you'd kind of shift around and you would have a topic, and it was just great because you were forced to kind of speak out loud your thoughts, and you'd hear other people's thoughts, and I really felt it was productive. Yeah, so that was a neat part of it too, where you're not just sitting in a classroom trying to absorb, a lesson. You're kind of actively working through it. So I felt that was pretty cool.
So let's shift gears. I'm curious, what are a couple of goals that you're focused on right now in your business? Now that you have time freed up, you're out of firefighting mode, you have your CEO Alliance group and your coach helping you with that. What are a couple of the goals that you're focused on right now?
Business wise, we want to continue to develop, and more so, we want to have one active development always underway. That's one of our bigger goals, and we're making steps towards that. The other thing, probably like most people, is we'd like to do a little bit better volume. We are, and we'd like to continue to improve our bottom line. And so that's always, I think, probably the goals in any business is growth of revenue and growth of, profits. But aside from that, personally, I have so much more time than I had before that travel is becoming less hard for me. So my wife and I like to travel, and, probably taking about a month off cumulatively a year now, which is about all I want to do right now. Maybe 6 weeks, but so it's freed up time that it's kind of funny when I go out of town, I don't even turn my phone on. So I'll bring it with me, and I'll check in after a couple days. And so I don't really, it's really changed in terms of, you see guys on vacation on the phone every 15 minutes. And so we're kind of set up now that there's a chain of command and everybody kind of knows what to do. And so it's freed up a lot of personal time as well.
One of the challenges people have, this is an unexpected challenge, is when they get out of firefighting mode and they go from 60 hours a week to 40 hours a week to a business that will run 10 or 20 hours a week. Some guys struggle with, okay, what am I going to do now? And that sounds ridiculous to some people, but it is a problem.
No, it is absolutely a problem. And, in our CEO Alliance group, there's a couple of us that we struggle with this, and because we've always been the firefighter. And, my antidote for that is looking now, instead of firefighting, I look towards how can we put a system in place for this? So I'm still pretty active, working on systems in our business and growing our business where, I really could, if I wanted to, I could just really not work very much and probably wouldn't change my lifestyle that much. But, I'm still young enough mindset that I'd like to grow the company. And we have this third generation now involved and providing a great company for them. And they're all in growth mode. So yeah, but it absolutely is the hardest thing, I think, for a lot of us to do is what do you do with that time?
My advice for folks would be to start, and what I advise people to do is, although it sounds ridiculous, start thinking about what are you going to do with your free time? Because if you don't have something that you're walking toward, you'll just be left with this void. You'll have this identity crisis. You may become the unintentional arsonist. So it's really helpful to think, what are you going to walk toward as you walk away, as you put the fireman coat and firefighter, put the fire hose down, what are you going to do with that? It's a good problem to have, but it's an interesting problem. Yeah. Couple of quick rapid fire questions for you, Rocky, as we wrap up. What is something you believe to be true about business that some people might think is unconventional, maybe even a little crazy?
You never really arrive, you can set goals, and once you get in your goal, maybe I want to build 50 houses or do 100 remodels this year. And when you get there, then you're like, now what? And so business is always evolving. It's always changing, and you never get to the summit, really. I think maybe someday when you hang up your hammer and you look back and go, hey, I did pretty good. But while you're in it, it's just, you got to enjoy what you do. And I really like what I do. I think the thing that I don't like is problems, and nobody likes problems. But for the most part, love our business, love what we do. And there's just you can get to a certain level and then there's the next level. And so I think everything's always evolving. You can never stop learning. Once you stop learning, you're kind of stuck where you're stuck. And so I don't know, I guess I'm saying this as a guy that's 62 and always thought when I was younger, hey, I'm going to get to this level and I'm going to be that guy, that has the boat and the fancy cars and all this. And, but that's not really what it's all about. And, it can be a lot of fun. And if you set up your business properly, it's a heck of a lot more fun than putting out fires. So I don't know if that's a good answer to your question, but, maybe for me it is.
I think it's a fantastic answer. What I heard you say was when you think you achieve this goal or you think you reach the summit, then it's like, okay, well, what's next? And what I heard you say was enjoy the process. You got to enjoy the work. The way I like to say it is don't put happiness on the other side of achievement. And I did this for a long time, which was when I hit this goal, when I achieve this thing, then I'll be happy. And I checked these boxes, made the big deal, did the thing, and then I wasn't happy. What I've learned is enjoy the process. Don't put happiness on the other side of achievement. You gotta be happy where you are right now, or you're never going to be happy. You're actually going to be pretty disappointed if you put happiness on the other side of some goal. So I think that's fantastic advice. I wish we were having this conversation 25 years ago. That would have helped young Todd quite a bit. Would have helped me avoid a lot of frustration. Last rapid fire question. What's the name of the town where you live? And if somebody's visiting, where's the bar or the restaurant that they absolutely need to visit? Maybe even what should they order while they're there?
Well, we live in Leawood, Kansas, and suburbs in South Kansas City, and a lot of great restaurants. Maybe the Bristol, that's a good one. That's a restaurant. It's a seafood restaurant, but they have a lobster rolls, which are like a hoagie lobster sandwich thing. It's a happy hour deal, but those are fantastic. If you don't care about your diet at all, go have some of those.
Go to the Bristol, order the lobster roll. Kansas City I would not think lobster roll in Kansas City. I would think more like Boston, but
of course there's the barbecue. We're all spoiled here with the barbecue, but
any advice on Kansas City barbecue? What to watch out for? How does one find true Kansas City barbecue?
Oh man, there's a lot of good ones. You can't go wrong with Joe's KC. So just keep that in mind. They're a good one. And Q39. There's a lot of them. A lot of good ones.
Rocky, this has been great. I really appreciate it. If people want to follow you, where's the best place for them to do that? Is it your website, DustyRhodesHomes.com? Is that the best place?
That'd be it.
Well, congratulations on the success. Great work. It's been fun working with you. It was great to meet you in Naples a month or so ago. And I look forward to seeing you again in Miami in March for the next one.
Really appreciate everything, Todd. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the time to be on here, Rocky, and we'll talk soon, man. Hey, it's Todd here. And one more thing before you go. Look, if you own a construction business and you want to put the right systems in place so you can either scale it up, maybe you want to step away from it, be able to take a proper vacation, maybe you want to sell it someday, maybe you just want to have more freedom, or maybe make it more profitable, or maybe you just want to get out of constant firefighting mode and make your phone stop ringing all the time. You really have three options if you want to make a meaningful change in your business. Option one is do nothing. Status quo, keep doing the same things, getting the same results. Option two, you can DIY it. You can do it yourself. You can reinvent the wheel. You can read books, listen to podcasts, try to piece together a solution, use trial and error. Or option number three, if you want meaningful change, is to find a proven system that delivers the results you're looking for. Sort of like if you use software for project management or for your bookkeeping, I assume you probably didn't try to code your own software. You found a proven system that delivered the results you're looking for, right? Well, if you're looking for a proven system to systematize your business, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners implement our systems in their business, specifically our nail the handoff pre-construction process in their business. It works for home builders, remodelers, commercial general contractors. It also works really well for trade contractors like electricians, concrete contractors, site, utility, plumbing. And it's part of our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So if you want to see what systematizing your business looks like, what nailing the handoff looks like, and the positive side effects that come with that, then the next step would be to schedule a free business evaluation call with my team. And you could do that by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or just go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. You'll learn about the 5-step process we've helped hundreds of people implement to systematize their construction business. Most importantly, you'll get an objective third-party evaluation of your business to answer one really big question. Is your business designed to fail, or is it designed to succeed? So let me ask you this. If your business was unintentionally designed to fail, when would you rather find out? Now, while there's time to do something about it, or later on when it's maybe too late? This business evaluation call is totally free. There are no strings attached, no pressure. And it could be the best hour you've spent working on your business in a long time. So our schedule fills up pretty quickly. So if you're interested, go over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, or go to constructionleadingedge.com and tap the Apply Now button to book your business evaluation call. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got value out of this podcast. If you could take a moment, if you did, and leave a rating or a review, or share this with somebody who needs to hear it, I would appreciate it. Todd Dawalt from Construction Leading Edge. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.